Let me introduce you to John Della Rose. Now, why he may look more like No BS or Rook Show guy, a little more clean cut version of him. But of course, this is from 5 years ago, but we're going back from a past for John. But that might be a little bit too much of a bad comparison there. John has more comparison to the quartering, only without the sort of widespread success. Because, like Jeremy of the quartering, John Della Rose was canceled by those dreaded SJWs. Unlike the quartering, John hasn't been as successful at turning that sort of cancellation and victory he got, because frankly, I don't think the quartering ever got that victory from Magic the Gathering back in the day. By John, give him props where you can, did.
This is John Della Rose, the #1 undefeated Hispanic in science fiction. I'm completely undefeated. And
you are, in fact, the most dangerous Hispanic voice in science fiction ever.
But John did. But maybe that's why he talks so much about him. Or maybe because the quartering's become a lolcow in recent years. Maybe overall, don't know. Not the biggest fan of the quartering, though I used to actually like John's content when he wasn't doing the standard anti-SJW garbage. Not that I have anything for SJWs, just the content around it has become so freaking unoriginal and oversaturated that it's rather boring and hard to keep up with half the time. But enough of that. Let's move on to the history of John Della Rose.
I missed the 56th annual Nebula Awards, and I didn't care. So
yeah, that's too bad. You know, I recently picked up off of Amazon, I guess, the 5th Nebula Award winner paperback that I remember reading when I was 11 or 12, and that really dates me because that comes out to about 1969 or 1970. That was the year Harlan.
Yeah, definitely not caring. Definitely is gonna hurt him in the long run, in my personal opinion. He sort of made his name in this sort of industry. Then, for some reason, we're gonna see what he actually covers in the book space.
Lynn Ellison won for A Boy and His Dog, and it had, I remember reading it as a 6th grader, and it had a word that I thought was the past tense contraction for cannot, but years later I found out that in fact it was an entirely inappropriate word for female genitalia. Harlan, the things you would have done to me if I had gone to ask my parents what that word meant. Anyhow, and then it had oh gosh, The Man Who Loved Loving, or Learned to Love by Theodore Sturgeon, and 9 Hells by Ursula Kroeber Le Guin. And all of those stories stuck out in my mind to.
Wow, someone's talking about their love of science fiction, and that's all you can say. This was about over 2 years ago. He's definitely out of the game of the love. Although he did do a live stream where he talked about the best sci-fi novels about a year ago. Rather lackluster, in my opinion.
To this day, 50 years later, and I wonder if there's anything in this current crop that's going to have the same effect on people, and it particularly the short story.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is nobody's going to read these. Nobody will remember any of them in a year, and it's a pointless award of a small circle jerk of people who just are voting for themselves and their friends at this point. And it's sad. And
Yeah, I will agree. What drew me to John was he's one of the only people who talked about how useless these award shows are. Him sort of opting out and jumping on to not Gamergate, Comicsgate sort of ball sack. Little interesting in my opinion.
Really, the attitude, check out this transition. The attitude that Worldcon actually displayed in their hatred of just normal people uh, is really indicative of why the genre is sinking so low in the mainstream capacity. I'm sad about it. I really hope this is like a first step towards people acting reasonable and stopping the nonsense and just being able to enjoy books and good things again. But I'm unfortunately, unfortunately, I think the result of this is just going to be they're gonna be hating on people like myself, like you, like people in the chat, and try to get rid of folk without actually stating why at this point. And so they're just going to just say, well, we're banning you, and no, we're not telling you why. I think that's going to be the result of this, unfortunately.
And I had no idea what had happened to science fiction until I think you were the one who pointed out that a Hugo Award winner involved a hate prose poem concerning velociraptors ripping apart rednecks in a pool hall. And
Correct.
I thought, how
Yes.
can that possibly compare to the great stories that I mentioned earlier? Harlan Ellison, Theodore Sturgeon, Samuel R. Delaney's Time Considered as a Helix of Semi-Precious Stones. And I was just,
Yeah, quite insane. You find out what these sort of sci-fi writers write about. And frankly, I don't even know what to make of this. But yeah, he co-opted number one. Yeah, we're about to hear him actually explain as I go past his history. But this was sort of his landmark, and maybe he's given up. Listen to his lawyer who won him the defamation case here because Worldcon and probably the Nebula called him a whole bunch of mean, naughty words.
shocked.
Harlan Ellison is turning in his grave, and if he was alive today, he'd be saying these people are a bunch of hacks. They do not even deserve to be published whatsoever. It's really tragic.
But come back in, and I start reading the Hugo Awards and finding out how trashy they really are, how bad they are, and compare them to the earlier ones that were so effective for me as a nerdy teenager or preteen. I think that yes, it's just another example of how our elites, so to speak, are doing all they can to gut the living.
I really want to push back on this elite mentality. It's not elites. It's what John said earlier, a circle jerk of people, mainly progressives, trying to push politics through media. And it's really a shame there's so many people out there in booktube talking this stuff up, sort of giving even bad books a serious cover. Why John was in perfect position to push back on that. But he does very little with what he sort of made for himself. Not that I can completely blame him going into uncharted, untested fields where there's no one else to really back you up besides, a lawyer, maybe a few other writers without much YouTube experience. Got to be hard for him.
Essence of our institutions and traditions.
So much screen time to my blogs report at the Ned. You're right, and so
I disagree. I am a casual fan. I am a longtime fan, and the Nebula Award winners are important to me. And I want to know who the Nebula Award winners are because I'll go read them. But I think that what it's got.
Yeah, probably a mistake there. This is how I came to John, going through the awards, seeing who's been winning recently, and just being like, what the hell is wrong with sci-fi nowadays? Not that I'm so far in this that I know whatever this lawyer is talking about here. Still decent stuff overall, which I can respect. Asimov, Orson Scott Card, and a few others are more my bread and butter.
I'm going to find out is that, again, it's full of stereotype cliches of a certain political bent, and not very good writing. And I'm willing to go and read it with an open mind. But if it's anything like the Hugos, I'm going to be devastated that something that I treasure from my childhood has gone the way of so many other woke product in.
Yeah, people aren't paying attention to the novels, and they're really not seeing what's happening in the novel industry, especially with these awards. It's to be expected, but the grounds of it is rather tough to go against. So in the end, I don't blame John for sort of opting out, not wanting to go this route and go where a whole bunch of people have his back. I'm not going to say that's cowardly or anything like that. Give up on your dream of writing. And look, it's already setting up here. I believe this is 2 years ago where this victory is done. Already setting up to go into Comicsgate. Even prepping to do that beforehand. Beautiful stuff.
Modern society. Sorry, Mike. Nice
it's
point.
Worse.
You're
but it's a great point.
Self-aggrandizing. I appreciate that.
I decided to
that's
put
my
up,
point.
I decided to put up my comic Dave's Volt up instead. This has good classic 70s fun. If you love Conan the Barbarian, if you love Prince Valiant, if you love the classics, even John Carter played a little bit of an influence on this. If you love Steve Ditko, John Buscema, just the greats in comics, this is going to be the book for you. Make sure to back it today. This is where the real culture war is at, and this is a pro-Catholic, pro-Christian book at that, so you can be happy.
Yeah, just cede the ground to your enemies. Give up, pack up. I really think this was a waste. There was potential for John in this space, and that's probably his potential waste because he set himself up and then went to some of these comic books. And frankly, we'll go into a little bit of the ideas, how he progressed, but still going through a bit of his history. Don't want to cut off his head here.
Happy that your values will be represented because representation matters, Peter. So much screen time to my blogs report at the Ned. You're right. And so I
disagree. I am a casual fan. I am a longtime fan, and the Nebula Award winners are important to me. And I want to know who the Nebula Award winners are because I'll go read them. But I think that
I doubled up on this crap. Whoopsies. Edit an error in this sort of little edit here.
Book at that. So you
missed out the epic music I put at the end, but yeah, pretty much done. Well, at least I caught that in post. It wasn't a real video. So we got this. The wasted potential is truly John's waste to actually do anything, capitalize on the gains he made in the industry after his victory in the court. And whoa, he really wasted a lot of ground. Can we have this prep video? I don't know what's the meaning behind it. Supposedly it's titled John Delarose and his friends. Antifa comes to Worldcon. I really don't know what this is. I thought I'd put it in. I guess Antifa, get a little bit of background for how this sort of went. John Delarose and friends. Antifa comes to Worldcon. 76. It's been going on 76 years, and now this is what sci-fi. Smash fascism. Why are they there?
What's up, everybody?
And here.
Back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. Delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. And I'm going to remind you to sign up for my newsletter. UCTour.com here asking to sign up for their newsletter. But you should sign up for mine because you don't want to miss any awesome videos about comics, sci-fi, culture, anything like that. And you'll get a weekly digest on that front. And you'll get a special free comic and 2 books for signing up. Can't beat that deal anywhere else on the internet. So make sure the newsletter is down in the description below. Sign up for that. I am back at home after our whole California fires epidemic thing. We are safe.
Okay.
The smoke's kind of cleared out of here, and back to business as usual here on the
200
channel.
views
Indie with
3
Life.
years ago.
I wasn't actually going to make this video because, as you know, I don't really like to give these corporations much attention up ahead of time, which came out in the link in the description below.
Pushing his stuff.
But what happens with these awards and this and that, and people are getting blacklisted. If it sounds,
you'll see a theme with John. Try to sprinkle in some of his work, and yeah, I agree with a lot of this.
Right, he was part of that. Now, John C. Wright's a good right-wing author who I definitely.
But it's about the right wing, the politics. Yeah, he's talking about the olden years.
Endorse, but he was part of their slate, so that was on there. If you look at 2016, Larry Correia, Larry was the head of that slate. Terry Pratchett on Best Young Adult. Well, you know, David Weber, part of the Bain crowd, also.
Going down.
Novik, that's just a big book. Wasn't a part of it. Nick Cole, he's part of that whole movement also.
Dragon Awards
during this time. So 2016, all these guys got themselves awards who were trying to do this.
Yeah, trying to push this.
And then it kind of became like an indie free-for-all. If you look at it, you got Mark Miller, you know, you had a couple of the big names on there.
Yeah, you got Artemis, which I hear is the only Andy Weir book that I have not actually read. These other names, I mean, you got James S.A. Corden, the one who did the famous Expanse series books.
To get on there, it was a free-for-all. The movement was growing.
Going down the list.
Right? Everybody kind of had their own deal. David Freer's a small guy.
Oh, and Monster Hunter. Oh, they supposedly that guy, Larry Corden, got better, but his first book was just god awful. Just going down the list. And I guess Dragon Con is probably just the inverse of a lot of these particular groups. See all these names. Oh, John Della Rose got himself.
I lost to my boy Richard list. Fox. He's a good indie also. So 17 was really a free for all. So 2016, all the people who had their slate from the year before and had their attention from that kind of won. Then it went to indie. 2018 was still kind of indie, but it started growing. And then 2019, you'll see a switch in the way that things go. So you have Tor books, you have Bain books, you have Orbit, right? And Harper Voyager. This is another one. Solaris books. No indies made it for sci-fi, right? You'll notice that right away. They were all corporate nominees in 2019. Go to Best Fantasy. You have this is Best Fantasy, yeah. Bain, Del Rey, Orbit. So you've got only a couple. Tor.com, Crown Publishers is another one. So you've really got no indies in fantasy either. And so the corporate took this over.
You're not even going to bring up John Weir, who blazed into the scene, self-published his own book, not even a writing background. Is he not going to get into any of that? He's just talking about the industry, that indie, not even bring up Andy Weir. I mean, maybe he spent some time on that, but this is really very consecutive of some of these problems. So next one down the line, we got his victory march here. Flawless victory. Worldcon apologizes to me after they call him a racist or something. It's been a while to go over it. And look at good old Joe Biden. Let me put this away so no one blames me for scarring of their life with Joe Biden. Why has he been on ads recently? I do not know.
I have been waiting 3+ years to get justice in this situation, and it's finally happened.
We're going
to go over it a little bit. And we're going to have a live stream tomorrow, which is Monday,
author,
June
illustrator,
7th at 12:15 Pacific time with my attorney. We're going to have a wonderful time. He's going to really dissect this. If you want the...
And that's what I had in my original edit version of the video. Obviously, the lawyer is a big fan of sci-fi, so he gets back behind that.
Deep, nitty-gritty details of all this. You're going to have an awesome show. So make sure to show up tomorrow for that. Hit the like and subscribe button and all that. Also, I want to thank everybody. We have Clockwork Dancer #2 out this week. We are a #1 new release. I've got sci-fi books, comics, all the fun things. Go check him out. People want to
Push,
support the
push,
channel, want to
push
support
your
the cause
stuff.
in our culture. This is the best way to do so. I'll leave
You should absolutely wait until after this is like leading with the charge. Is he just unabashedly like, I'm gonna just push my shit, it's whatever I'm gonna do? Probably turned a lot of people off of his content every time he starts off pushing his shit from the very get-go. I would save that for like a mid-roll for himself personally.
leave the link for Clockwork Dancer #2 down below. Very excited. Read the book today. All right, here's the real deal. Worldcon apologizes to me. This has been a long time coming. If you guys aren't aware of this situation, I've been targeted and harassed by SJWs in science fiction since I came on the scene in 2016. They found out who I voted for on my Facebook wall, and I just started getting threats ever since that point.
He also has a Periscope that's on his video from about 5 years ago that has him with the Kekistan flag. He definitely baited some of this stuff, and I don't know how serious to actually take him. Whether or not he's serious or not, or if he's just was sort of going into the scene to cause drama. I would like to think better of him, but I can't tell for sure.
It was really ugly. It started picking up in 2017 when I started noticing what was going on in the comic book world also. And Bleeding Cool picked up my blog and started just saying awful things about me. And from that point, I just got constant death threats, constant harassment. I couldn't just be left alone to make my work. And this translated over to people I never would have thought doing this. I mean, big names like John Scalzi, the head of SIFWA at the time, Cat Rambo. They were all on this hate blog called File 770, just attacking me over and over and over again. And I'd email them and I'm like, I don't know you people. Like, why would you do this? Let's talk. Like,
Oh, okay. No wonder he kept up with his hate bony for John Scalzi. I was wondering if that was for really any particular reason, but it seems related to this.
normal people. But they can't, because SJWs are not normal people. They are such hateful, evil individuals. They just want to make everybody miserable along with them because they are
And frankly, his rhetoric is going to turn people off. Frankly, saying SJWs are really misguided, really flawed in their logic and what they do would be a much better way, but he just demonizes the other side. And why that's good for that tribal mentality, it has no sense of nuance to it.
absolutely miserable. And the reason it is on a Sunday, I'll preach a little. The reason they're miserable is because they have a complete absence of God in their lives. God is that honest, good.
Yeah, and the whole way he pushes the fucking Christian thing is just the worst thing about Christians, the worst thing a Christian can do. And considering some of the stuff he does ethics wise, I can respect a lot of Christians, but his personal principles and how he goes about it is frankly just sad. He gives Christians a bad name with this. Even if he's right, this might be justified anger, a distorted view. I have a whole saying. It's hard to say if these people online are dumb, dishonest, delusional, or D, all of above. Occasionally I'll throw another D in, but that's more for the meme of it. The 4 Ds: dumb, dishonest, delusional, D, all of above.
Goodness and joy that fills all of us, that gives us the sense of purpose, that gives us the sense of love, that gives us the sense of joy. And when you take that out of your life and you become one of these SJWs, you have a major problem, and you're trying to fill the hole with hate and anger and trying to ostracize people to make yourself feel better about yourself. And it's a bummer. And I really hope that honestly, I don't hate anybody. I want everybody to come to the glory of Jesus Christ along with me and share in this joy. And I'm always happy to talk about that with anybody. I don't care what.
Yeah, but you're demonizing them for being godless. I mean, you can pity them. You can do a lot of things. Let's see if there's more of this. He just has to go on the attack with this. Yeah, I guess he does. Oh, no, wrong one. Let's not bring up that man here. Oh, I don't know about it's hang out in a weird crowd. He seems to go crowd to crowd surfing. Don't know about that. I'm just saying, as someone who picked him up after Adam Friendit, a sort of live stream that I can't find from Adam Friendit's secret Thursday night stream. I remember seeing him on this, but this is after I was introduced to him because of my own disappointment with these books that win the awards.
People and have got death threats and things like that. do you have additional security measures and things like that? And they never responded to me. So I was really scared. So I was sitting here. I mean, I had months debating, do I actually go to this or not? Because, I've got little children. So I'm like, I can't risk.
Sympathy card. I feel for him. Okay,
Comes up to me and starts to harass me, and Worldcon banned me for it. They claimed I was intending on going and following people around with a camera or something. Nonsense. There are detailed records again of my fear of what's been. And
reasonable, plausible deniability, understandable. Oh,
It's
good
open
old
enrollment
ads
season.
here. See what he's been 1 year ago. He's starting to get up in those views. I'm guessing he's bringing this into the sort of limelight.
To show
and
that
he
these
pushes
people have no faith. They are selling
this Inuyasha ish sort of ripoff. Probably not. Isekai, probably jumping. Yeah, brand new Isekai comic book. High school girl in the Crusades comic graphic novel.
I will be going over that soon, much like I showed that Zoe Quinn sold no books and Patrick Tomlinson sold no books. The president of SIFWA sells no books. John Scalzi sells a lot less than you think, even though he's been propped up by the media. More to come. Hi, my name is John Delarose. I am a #1 best-selling author and an award-winning comic creator. I've got a new book out on Indiegogo right now. I'm doing this all myself. I have no corporate media behind me. I don't get New York Times reviews saying it's the best thing.
It's funny how I've never seen where he's #1 at. Okay. He keeps on touting that. Yeah, Bluster, or maybe he got #1 somewhere, some Dragon Award somewhere. Don't know about that. No clue. Grifter. He definitely has some grifting qualities. I will say that. Pushing every one of his videos, pushing his brand. There are some people who probably made that a standard. Don't know if he's just copycatting or grifting, thinking this is what people in this sort of space does to push their crap.
Ever for my copy of Heinlein like John Scalzi did. I'm just doing it myself. I'm making fun books. I'm making quality entertainment without any degeneracy in it. Just pure PG fun that anybody can read. And we're doing that right here. High School Girl in the Crusades is about exactly what it sounds like it is. There's a lot of action and adventure. Just awesome, awesome entertainment for you by somebody who doesn't hate you. Check it out today. That link is in the description.
Just go quick, push his product, and move on to the subject matter. I guess he has, at least he has chapter things, so he can skip his whole pitch.
For what it's supposed to be for a quick post, for quick thoughts. It's really not the spot to do something like this, but they always do this. So here he goes off because people are noticing that every year the Hugo Awards are not having any whites or males getting their books nominated anymore. And it's because of virtue signaling SJWs all the time. It is
I don't know about that. There is some weird zeitgeist in the sort of industry. Just saying white guys. John Scalzi got a book. Frankly, it sounds like a horrible shirt. Horrible book. Just a parody off of freaking Star Trek called Red Shirts. And it beat out something that I think should have been brought up.
Completely a racial thing. It is completely a gender thing. And it's because a bunch of cat ladies, a bunch of angry.
See, he just goes on with some intent. He just assumed their intent, not knowing, demonizing them, just harping on that whale front. And I don't think he's changed much over the years. What is the definition of insanity? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But he is steadily climbing up using this sort of methodology. I meant, so the awards are rigged. I mean, there's a reason Gail Simone's are unpopular and sort of crap. I would not call rigged, but extremely biased of the panels and recipients, and the fact that these guys were ousted out and just created a parallel economy that I don't see existing in the limelight. Frankly, I think just giving up and ceding this ground to these people is much worse overall. And you can see a good old thumbs up because I have a comment show that I actually liked him over a year ago. I noticed a while ago about the Hugo Awards, the fact that Andy Weir wasn't nominated. He was for the Dragon Awards, something that John here sort of overlooked in his sort of little speech before. is probably good evidence of this. Also, the fact that they had the Lady Astronaut Hugo Award winning author complain about the pronouns for the alien in her review of Project Hail Mary was funny if it wasn't so sad. Old Man's War was a good book, probably the only good, solidly Stasi book that I've read. Didn't bother much with Stasi after that. I did try. Funny, all his books except award-winning Red Shirts, which seems to be a clever idea that went unfinished. But here I'm saying so in a comment section with a video only 900 views from a guy with only 6K. So he's upped his things by double by doing this anti-SJW sort of thing here. Success to him. But he has to keep doing it in such a obscure corner of the interwebs. I don't know why I bother. And, you know, you don't get much comments. Oh, here's one. Use your voice. Your voice's gamings is a true gift. I certainly try to entertain. Look at the sort of interaction of this. I'm not saying comment section. Where do you get these sales figures from? I have an inside source that works at Tor. Can't reveal. They're legit. Does this also count audiobooks I have on Audible? Blah, 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 blah. Sold and doesn't answer. Interesting. Oh, Latinx comes up. Oh my God. Yes. Quite interesting. It doesn't actually say much. And weirdly enough, my comment looks like the most upvoted comment that there is. Strange how that is when you actually dive into the book and not just go with this narrative here.
Cat ladies took over these Hugo Awards, where you only need about 800 votes really to win a Hugo Award at all these days. Everybody else who was normal checked out, and now you have no normal people winning awards anymore. You have no normal people voting for these awards.
Yep, and you checked out also. Just bitched out on this front. Took your little ideas and ran with it to a different group that would respect you more, but still not excessive amount.
Anymore. And so it's a total train wreck. John Scalzi knows this. He knows that the science fiction industry is collapsing, that Tor Books is dying under its own weight of its contract for $5 million with John Scalzi, which is really, really sinking them fast. He is losing tons of money from them, and I'll show you the stats on that in a second. So he is going full cope on Twitter to try to make some diversity ploy to try to stay relevant when he has no relevancy anymore. Here he goes. So I do have.
That's not exactly true. He still has fans out there, but a lot of people talk about Old Man's War as something and went along with him. You can't compete. You don't talk about the writing. You talk about his Twitter engagement. Very telling. Talk about his Twitter rants. Is that all you can do when in these spaces? Just try to tout the numbers. Sounds familiar. Just number games. No serious arguments, just number games.
Nominated for Best Hugo for novel. You know, with white men being a large portion of the population, that makes no sense. If representation matters, there should be some representation, you'd think. And last, actually, when it was John Scalzi, who, you know, I mean, we can call him a man. If, we don't have to go there, but you'll see the thumbnail picture for this. Anyway, back in 2013, it suggests a clear aesthetic shift on how sci-fi works, one on the scale of the rise of new wave in the 60s and the sudden arrival of cyberpunk in the 80s. However, nobody has formulated a take on how this movement functions. It has. It's just a movement of people who are ganging up against men in general. They've been trying to kick men out of science fiction, out of entertainment. If you look at Hollywood these days, they don't really have any strong male leads anymore.
And he's linking it to this. Okay, maybe it's downstream. You see the grounds of the actual writing.
The modern corpse of acquiring editors, both in New York publishing and in short fiction, has significantly more women and LGBTQ plus folks, and more diversity generally. Stories they buy reflect their interest, and the sales numbers are good. They're not good. We'll get to that in a second. So they keep at it. It's not about sales numbers with these people. It's about social agenda. It's a bunch of nerds, a bunch of cat ladies, it's a bunch of just degenerate people who have gone into these industries specifically with the intention of taking it over, specifically with the intention of destroying it for their own pet perverted interests. And that's exactly what John Scalzi caters towards. If you read the beginning of his book, it was, gosh, I don't remember even what it was called. I'll get to it in a second. It has this like weird dominatrix woman, like
having her weird like reverse harem of men and women where she's beating them and doing sexual tortures with them. And that's exactly what all these people think about full time. That's John Scalzi's mind in a nutshell. So
No, he's just trying to keep up, trying to appease these people like Stephen King, sort of Stan Lee. All these older people are just trying to keep up and not getting left behind, especially when they're untalented writers like Stalzy. Not complete garbage, but he was mid at best and really has never moved away from that sort of sinking feeling. But he still gets nominations, I'm guessing. Goes over this. I spend so much time with just the tweets. What the hell?
John Scalzi will ever write
not
in his
showing it on
entire
stream.
life. He goes off a little bit longer, but there's nothing really more to see here. It's all complete garbage that he's trying to make up, and we are trying to push things new and forward. But John Scalzi, with a big $5 million contract, should be selling $5 million worth of books if this is the case. If that degeneracy is something that he wants in this last Emperox, which is the name I forgot, where he's got all this creepy, weird sexual shit in it.
No, okay, he could be correct. I never read that series. Oh, look, Love, Death, and Robots. He got on the Netflix train. Beautiful stuff, Stalzies. He has gone downhill. Read his recent book, Starter Villain. Quite an interesting book. From what I know, Kaju's Preservation Society was super political. So he sort of slinked back to a pseudo degradation of the white male lead. And that's not exactly good. We got this, another Stasi video. He's just very limited in his sort of books where he actually covers sort of anything book related. And he really should have. So my whole main argument, and let's see.
Cope lately in
Let's see
SJW
how he
circles
starts.
about the failing traditional publishing book sales, both in comics and in science fiction. I'm going to go over them a little bit of both and their responses shortly. My name is John Delarose. I am the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, a #1 best-selling author, award-winning comic creator, and I've got a bunch of books out everywhere. But right now, we're in the last days of A High School Girl in the Crusades, my new graphic novel, which is on Indiegogo only for the next 38 hours. We've been going up really well this week. So thank you guys so much for the tremendous
for
support.
under a
We're
minute.
bringing Right. So yesterday, a group called Upstream Reviews, which is a wonderful website, posted a whole deal about SIFWA's book sales. Now, SIFWA is the Science Fiction Writers of America organization, and these are the traditional publishing giants. They pulled these numbers actually from my videos.
Okay, they pulled information from your videos where you couldn't even discount the Audible sort of connections. Where John Salzes has one of the biggest fans of sci-fi. What, Wheaton? You know, Wesley from Star Trek, the one everyone hated, and the one who's really annoying on Twitter before he banded it for something else. Yeah, who can't voice act his way. One of the worst voice actors out there. Good stuff, good stuff. Let's see. I think I might have put this. Talked about Stasi again. Still one of the highest upvoted comments on this video. Weird. Oh, here's one that got 8. Let me try to get it. Fahrenheit. It's not really a comment, it's just a book. Stasi. Do. On Audible. Can't find anything. I just read and he pushes himself. Someone's talking about having credits. He pushes his own little video. 5 books long, trying to push his own little book. That's the only engagement he gives to anyone in the comments. And yeah, somehow my comment. See, people underestimate, but you know what? For throwaway videos like he makes, maybe engaging with the comment section is just too much for him. He's busy doing other things. Locked In was a very weird book. I read it and forgot about it. Tried to go back and re-listen, just couldn't. The book was practically pointless, I guess. Weird sci-fi. Maybe I was a little bit in too hard. But yeah, I did go back and it really wasn't spectacular or even good. Weird sci-fi murder with too much focus on genderless status of the MC and pointless sci-fi politics. Old Man's War was good, but the sequels dragged out. Never read Red Shirts. Seemed like a waste of time. Being a weird parody of Star Trek. It was Red Shirts, frankly, blah, blah, blah. Control, Alt, Delete. Old Man's War is the only thing The second, I had some moments, but not overall great. And the third, at least, had the main character back in it. Well, that's about that there.
So they got these because I have a source within the publishing industry who is feeding me the numbers from the president who harassed me back in 2018. She is
a
selling
nameless, anonymous source. You gotta love those.
like maybe 30
Maybe he's correct, maybe he's not.
copies of her books. The current president of the Science Fiction Writers of America. Gosh, this book sold looks like a total of 20 copies, 10 copies. Oh my gosh. It's absolutely dismal. So these are the people in charge of culture, the people who are supposed to be the big stalwarts.
If they were in charge of culture, wouldn't you get more of being pushed out? Yes, it's a dying industry. A lot of stuff's moving over to audible books. And it's just sort of options becoming a thing, which I'll be getting into. And but frankly, my whole argument for John is that he ceded ground he made in the book sphere. He really wasted a lot of good opportunities to sort of have his little culture war little rants that really has not sort of done much for him in the long run. Let's see. Take a look at his channel. I'll even show you the little thing. His videos, it's really sort of unbalanced odds here. So let's take a look at what he's up to nowadays. Okay, 10 hours ago. Let's see. Let's just take a look at this. Fun stuff. This is Israel, author. Israel under attack, and author, blah, 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 needs your help. George R.R. Martin humiliated by Chat GPT and sues them for fans finishing his book. Aquaman 2 is a PR nightmare for Warner Brothers and her Hertz. Yeah, and you can't even break that. I'm not shaming him, but frankly, just this sort of short style content. Let's put this in real quick. At least he's not leading with his sort of pushing anymore of his novels. Let's take a look at his recent video. Rather short, trying to get the ads. I remember when you couldn't actually put many ads in something under 10 minutes.
In El Salvador right now and having the time of my life. But I know there's a lot of conflict going on in the world right now, especially out in Israel. And we do have an Israeli friend who's been a good part of the community and, of course, has been a part of the Iron Age and all of what we've been doing since day one. And I just want to highlight his project on Kickstarter while I'm away because, you know, he's in danger right now. I mean, there's rockets flying everywhere out there. And we want to make sure that people get to see his art and get to see what he's been doing because, again, he's just been wonderful for the community, wonderful to us. And we'd like to try to pay it forward as best as we can here on the channel.
Yeah,
a lot of channels don't do stuff.
At least he's doing good stuff here. He's not pushing his own stuff. He's pushing his friend's stuff, his culture warrior stuff.
Stuff like this, but we do. All right, so let's get into this and just take a look. This is Yakov Merkin's Amaranth Angels, a cute girls flying starfighters manga. And he is making a pretty giant book out of this right here. And it is in the tradition of like Robotech or Macross or the Gundam original stuff right here, as you can tell, with a bunch of cute girls. The fighter pilots here.
Is everyone in your group just leeching off of nostalgia of the old past? I swear. This is just bottom of the barrel. Let's see something quick, real quick, just to get another sample. His little fighting is sort of a bitch fit against Quartering. As I said myself, Quartering ain't that great, okay? But he's big, so let's check out this real quick just to get a good sample size of his.
The Bane books situation is getting even crazier. All I did is report on some numbers that were up there on Amazon for all to see. And I've got people just going at me. And I wondered where it was coming from, but it turns out, of course, it comes from Larry Correa's Monster Hunter International group, where they're just like, you know, posting whatever I say about things, saying they totally don't care. I'm just some grifter, right? And then they all flip out about me on repeat. This has been going on for like about the past week and a half, ever since Larry Correa went on a Twitch live stream to promote his new book. And for some reason, just lost his mind about me, started attacking me on the stream out of nowhere. You know, I don't want to fight with these guys. It doesn't make any sense. But they all started piling on at this point. So what's going on and what is happening now? Well, they blocked me on Twitter with their
company promotional account. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen happen, and we're going to get into the news in just a moment. I'm John Delarose. I'm a #1 best-selling author, an award-winning comic creator, a journalist. I've done a lot, of course, for the culture war since 2016 when I came out of the closet as a Trump supporter, and of course got blacklisted from being published in all of these houses because of that. If you look at a lot of the Bane guys who are going at me now, they're never Trumpers at the end of the day. That's really where this all comes down. They don't.
Yeah. Shameless self-promoting. Some people call you a grifter. I don't think they're wrong considering your videos. I don't know the behind the scenes or anything like that. Yeah. Don't know about the monetization. I'm sure there's ways to get one ad. I think you need over 10 minutes for multiple ads. He doesn't care about that. It's probably bad for him. He's been rambling on for some time.
Years. And the goal is eventually to have this pay for the art for monthly comic books so I can compete with somebody like an IDW.
Okay, still him.
Or something like that.
Still talking about
monthly
him.
Comics is where it's at. And that kind of content, being the pulp writer like that, is something I...
Such a great Christian, always talking about himself and what he's doing and friends supporting an unprovoked attack. And I don't even know what to say. It hasn't improved.
Very interesting times. That
he really should have just sort of gotten out of this sort of nonsense here. I mean, just look at his freaking content. Traditional. I mean, if you want to call him a grifter, I wouldn't blame you. I don't know. I don't meet prescriptions about anyone like this. Maybe you think he's playing the game. Well, look, he got a lot more views off of the insane haters stalking him IRL. He even talked to one of the ones who are questionable. I don't know if he's a stalker or whatnot. Weirdos harass even Van Skyber, do the best when he's simping for someone else bigger than him. Yeah, things here, there. Obviously, his people are just for Go Team. And when he's trying to put something out, so he doesn't establish his own brand. He's sort of just in a parasitical ecosystem where he just, it really is a waste of his branding overall. And I don't even know really where to go with this, but yeah. So we went from the past to the future, or should I say the present here. Want to take a look at the oldest, like this one, really interesting. Once I find it, yeah, obviously he was into the meme of the Keka stand. Joins. Yeah, I can see why they would feel a little weird about
promoting good science fiction and promoting its authors. Now, they used to do something which was pretty valuable in terms of a service for traditional publishing, which was to go over contracts, make sure there weren't contract disputes or you weren't getting screwed for contracts or whatnot if you're going with traditional publishing. Contracts are pretty standardized, and you can look up stuff on the internet now. That kind of isn't a service that matters anymore. And as more and more authors are not being traditionally published anymore, that also doesn't matter anymore. So that service kind of went by the wayside. Next, what happened was... next thing they do for members is provide like a co-op medical benefit sort of insurance package, which again is just not useful anymore because because of Obamacare. Everybody can get their insurance. So
Obamacare, blast from the past. The red hat. I don't know if that's a Trump hat or not. He's got the Keka stand, so always with the meme in here. It's just sort of funny to see his sort of development. I don't even want to go over it all. Now I get into my argumental section of this. Spent at least 45 minutes going over this sort of disappointing person who really could have opted out of the community and did something useful with his channel. But instead, he's sort of instead of keeping on that sort of bandwagon, he went to comics. Comics was big, and that seeded more ground. Still did some book stuff here and there, but it became less and less as time went on. Oh, Empowered is definitely something I have on my shelf. Interesting pick. Definitely not very Christian friendly. A woman who has a power suit who gets their superpower, unless it gets a slight little rip, then it's very erotic overtones, no actual sexual content, but a lot of innuendos here and there. And jumping probably on the little bandwagon of manga and comic books. Doesn't seem like 3 years ago he was really there. He was still sort of talking about all these little comic books here and there. Not getting into manga until later when all the other booktubers sort of jumped ahead with that. Fun stuff. Still very comic oriented back in the day. Here's something amongst his comics, and yeah, instant regret. Science fiction writers of America, war and indie creators create a new rival. Occasionally, he peppers this in. Here's some manga stuff, something that he got inspired by, and even sort of did the isekai craze with his silly little graphic novel. Beautiful stuff here and there, but you can just see the sort of progression if you go from oldest to newest. So you got to love this feature. You can also take a good old look at basically what they do the best. Got to love YouTube. Great for analytics. You can do the newest, the oldest, and the most popular ones. Test this at home. See what his most popular ones are. See how they go. See, another Dragon Awards full. I think I had that on my playlist. He was pushing. He got nominated for one of those, but they turned corporate SJWs. I don't even see his argument when Andy Weir still was making it. It was rather faulty argument that I really didn't respect very much. But you know what? You push on the SJWs, demonizing them, and I don't know where you leave yourself in the industry now that some things are sort of getting out of this woke. Yeah, Berserk takes going into that sort of take, but that's seeded way too well. His first science fiction among all these others, doing reviews, and he's really faulty. Oh, and he did do something which I was going to recommend. Let's take a look at how he handles this. So, this was a smart move on his part. Ready Player 2. It's definitely something to jump onto. Let's see how this man handles it, because that's definitely one of my recommendations. But let's see how he handles a comparison to an actual decent person, but who sadly enough only goes after the saddest of the sad in the industry.
John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. Head to my newsletter, which is in the description below, and you can get a science fiction novel and a steampunk novella, both of which do not have any woke nonsense in it, and you'll be able to enjoy just having fun. And that's what books like this are supposed to be about, which apparently the author of Ready Player 1/Ready Player 2 forgot when he decided to write this sequel. Now, Ready Player 1 was hailed as some sort of amazing thing about, gosh, whenever that came out. I don't even remember when it came out. Let's Google it. Ready Player 1. And let's see. Film. I don't care about the film. Where's the novel?
Yeah, definitely a mistake not caring about the film, not reviewing it.
People hailed it at the time. They loved it. It was another one of those, like, people go into a video game life. And I've seen way too many of those. And I didn't think this was innovative or creative at the time. I didn't think it was innovative or creative, definitely by the time the film came out. I mean, you just get this trope in anime and in books all the time. There's a whole genre of this stuff now called lit RPG, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But I never really saw what everybody was interested in about it. And I think
this sort of makes it funny that he did the isekai girl and okay, continue. He did the same exact thing after sort of denigrated it here. This is priceless.
But he goes through and talks about how it's just filled with 80s pop culture references, nostalgia, and all that. And that's exactly why this thing took off, is people just love those little member berries, as the South Park episode. So,
and you played with that earlier, as I showed, reminiscing how your books and comic books sort of play with that. It's funny. The anti-SJWs are truly becoming what they hate. demonizing the other side so painfully and just not taking criticism or really engaging with the community at all.
References over and over again. And then you get a class of literary critic who keeps going off on how references are actually more brilliant than anything else. And the more references it has, the better. It's not that hard to write something referencing something else. I mean, you can anybody could do that. I could write a novel referencing something else all day long.
And it seems he did do it with his one isekai novel. Wonder how much of that's original or if he went to the historical accuracy with it. Probably not, since there was a demon-like figure. Probably very Christian-centric.
And it just never will provide much beyond those references. It's not brilliance. It's not interesting. And I don't think Ready Player One really had much to it. Now, Margulis goes on to lament that Ready Player Two just really dives into the next rabbit hole, which is being woke. And because this is a white male author, he has to signal how woke he is at every single turn through here, to the point where the character has a crush on a female who's, quote, designated male at birth. You know what that means. So he really has to push this through everything. And that becomes the main.
And the focus of him is on the politics, not of the writing or how the wokeness, as he said, degrades it. He probably didn't even read it. Just went off this article, I'm guessing, because he's given up on books. As a sci-fi author, just giving up on all that seems so disappointing.
More overt and more virtue signaling than that, but it was always that to begin with. And that's why I never really hail or pay too much attention to these corporate novels, because that's what they are. They're corporate novels.
Okay, yeah, corporate, anti-populist, anti-corporate, totally against the man, fight against the man, all that crap like that. Buzzword salad. Does he say anything of significance? Does he have anything? I don't think he does. He's criticizes freaking I don't even know his fight with the quartering. I don't even want to know that autistic fight. And frankly, it's sort of sad that he's just doing the same thing most times, but being more not grippery, but pushing people who lockstep with his opinions.
Go pick up the book yourself. But if you are interested in much better books, head over to Indiegogo. I've got a bookstore up right here, and I can recommend you some great stuff depending on what you're interested in. You can go all the way down through my comics. You can get my comics digitally for real cheap if you just want to check those out. Or you can go further and into my novels. You can get a steampunk novel here.
Now, push your own stuff. Do you know how egotistic this makes you come off? Why people don't take you seriously. I mean, if you want to be a meme, you want to be seen as a grifter and not have any clue why, I think you lack self-awareness or just are dumb, delusional, or being dishonest, or D, all of above. Bringing that back around, my 4Ds.
Stuff. I got to mention that early on in the video.
4D
so people
chest here. Not exactly dealing with it. And frankly, it is really sad the sort of path he's taken when I had so much hope for him. There was so many people out there in BookTube reciting really crappy stuff. Let me give you a sample of someone really big and what he said about a certain thing here and there. So anyone, what was that? Top Gear? No. I'm not thinking about Top Gear. Adam Savage, I believe he was on Mythbusters, and he has the top 10 best sci-fi novel books. And wait until you hear one of them. I mean, this is just room to sort of just hammer home. You just hear how he talks about this one thing here. And it's just funny how he proceeds with this. So we have Savage.
Effectively rules the universe, the Canopians. The first book is called Shikasta. The quintology is about all these different planets within this created world. But the first one is a field report on Earth. So Shikasta is their name for Earth. Earth is a genetic experiment. Yeah, and Shikasta is a field report on the genetic experiment of Earth, starting 30,000 years ago and ending, if I remember correctly, a couple hundred years from now when the whole world holds the white man on trial for crimes against humanity.
Bam! Definitely some prime material that totally wasted, and there's so much. As I said, even with Ready Player 2, he really wasted what he was working with in his sort of industry. I meant you have this, but this
In
is like a
this book,
serious
it's just
review.
exceptionally lazy writing, and we're still like 50 pages into this, and the plot hasn't started. One other thing that I forgot to mention: these characters, these avatars that are getting wiped out. Remember how the economy works?
So you have John De La Rose, #1 voice, a Hispanic voice, using that identity push there to sort of push his credentials, push his sort of skill in writing. And you have this guy, Crimson Rogue, doing these books. You're doing it so much better. This is only part 1. A sequel so bad it ruins the first book. And he even admits the first book got savage because the first book wasn't anything special. The fact it got turned into a movie is definitely a sad state of how the book industry doesn't care about actual certain things, and Hollywood doesn't care. And probably why a lot of these sort of books that make the Hugo Award and crap like that don't actually make it out. Listen to this guy who isn't even #1 science fiction writer does this.
In the Oasis, if you die, you lose all your stuff and you start over at level 0. What if someone decided to troll on Maine and Wade came in and sniped them from afar and they lost all of their money, all their data, all their equipment? The Oasis is also a spot where people do a lot of business. What if people needed that money, that in-game currency, for travel expenses? Or what if they had an important document on them that they needed, again, for business or for class or something?
Okay, probably a bit too long overall for most people to really put on. But the important point is this is what a real book reviewer actually goes along with. John De La Rose talks about all these items as just a culture war to propagate his agenda. He's no different than a SJW in that regards. No wonder the Quartering called his sort of ass out on that particular matter there. Not that the Quartering is a dumbass, but that's sort of funny. Since Quartering is such a really big dumbass, how did he even see through John De La Rose's sort of stupid point there? And you have other people going on. I mean, you're ceding ground to other people. And let me not bury the lead here. Even I've tried to do it. So I understand why he doesn't do it. It's really not very prolific doing this particular sort of thing. I mean, look at this video from me. Project Hail Mary is the latest book by Andy Weir that's being made into a movie. It is a book I've rather enjoyed and part of a new wave of writers bucking the traditional publishing process. Coming to crossover view in the Washington Post by Mary Robinette Koval, president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. The same Science Fiction Writers of America that John De La Rose went up against and won. This would have been such fertile ground for him to actually capitalize on. Did he? Maybe. But he definitely didn't make a big enough of a deal of it. And his video content style is just so egotistical. You see the ego in this? I don't have a position in this. And getting into BookTube and criticizing this, something I'm going to try to work in. Who's also the author of the Lady Astronaut series, Calculating the Stars, or something like that. And I took particular issues with this particular review. You'll soon see why.
There's a lot of refrigerator logic in Project Hail Mary.
Mary is trying to say in a roundabout way, there's a lot of plot contrivances or logical inconsistencies in Project Hail Mary. Yeah, if you want to watch some of them, here's the few attempts I made. One was the wokeism, and look how I even used woke in the very beginning. I think I sort of apologized for it because it even 9 months ago, it sort of was already dying, and this is a properly.
First of all, let me apologize for the title. Wokeism is ruining sci-fi novels. I have issues with the term woke, but it's the common parlance we use for pretty much these stories that seem to be very weirdly focused on identity politics, which I don't agree with on most levels. There is some good to them, but it's gone too far. This is a spur of the moment video, so it might get a little bit rambly. I was basically looking for a new book on Audible, and I was going through some reviews. Yes, this was sort of a very low tier, analyzing it just from my knowledge of John Stalzey's. And I even did a review on Dark Harvest, Critical's Drinker's book. There's so much fertile ground to actually take up. This was a very experimental piece, trying to be spoiler free by trying not to spoil too much, but still get a gist of the story across why, given some feedback, I help him, his fans, and maybe even his critics can get something out of. You can let me know how well I do in the comments section or with one of those fun thumb buttons down below. Funny enough, Dark Harvest is open. Yeah, not going to bore you. You can watch my content if you want to. You have a Literature Devil here sort of reviewing Isom and Ethan Van Sciver. That's another thing. And you have Daniel Green sort of going over Shad's book in particular. But you know what? Some real advice if John Della Rose wants to get back on this bandwagon. How do you successfully do this? I think roasting the shit out of this, because the book, this was one of these Ward shows, Ward things, I'm guessing just because it's a Chinese book, that he sort of went with. Netflix.
As children, we fear the dark.
Oh, so much fertile ground. It's done by the D&D of Game of Thrones. Good chance to see how they're going to adapt something that was crappy from the start. I don't think you should be touting this. D&D lost a lot of gigs thanks to their poor handling of the Game of the Thrones towards the end. And with the source material, I'm curious how they're going to humanize the characters, because even people who praise this book say the characters are flat, 2D. I do not know how it made the Hugo Awards or any of these award programs just based on their own merit. And if this thing is going to be as bad as I think, and people praising it, John Della Rose could definitely roast the shit out of this shit. I'm planning to do it. Planning to go on my whole book rant arc after I do a review of this and go on a rant about the book and try to monopolize on that. But it's still not going to have a lot of gain. But you know what? This is one area. The BookTube area on YouTube, on social media, has no representation. And John Della Rose was in perfect positioning to take advantage of that. But instead, he ran off to join the comic skaters because they have support. Did he really think going into the sort of books, he just got tired of doing this, lazy, or is he just sort of grifting off of the cultural thing of Comicsgate and the whole anti-SJW craze? I'm not going to make any claims with that particular thing there. But this is definitely where John can sort of get back into the game. Review this and try to junction to a tear down of that book, because people, there is so much to tear apart in that book. Even if the show ends up somewhat successful, why it becomes successful will be interesting. But I guess you have to know about writing and what makes successful stories to really get into the nitty gritty, instead of using the culture war as a freaking little bitch ass crutch to sort of make your brand on, which you don't even successfully do it because you really come across as someone in it for yourself and almost grifterish.
Anything might be out there. The unknown troubles us. There are those who say we should not inquire too closely into who else might be living in that darkness. Better not to know.
Yeah, interesting stuff. You could just criticize the trailer all on its own. for all the, now, I could probably do a deep-seated reading into it. And, there's so much wasted potential overall that other people took up. Another big waste of John
Did
De
you
La
ever
Rosa's
stress about us
time here and there. This video is the corporation of both things that really, I think, was good to sort of hit home on. Because it's a comparison of a leftist red tuber.
Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis
Lindsay
and
Ellis.
Heaven's River by Dennis Taylor. These are two highly requested books for me to review on the channel. One by a fellow YouTuber who a lot of people want to know what I think about, and the other by a series I've been highly touting for quite some time. We're going to go ahead and start with the former here and discuss Lindsay Ellis's Axiom's End. Now, every single time a YouTuber steps outside their creator bubble and tries to do something artistically different, there's a stigma for reasons.
Yep, good reasons. Oh, Logan Paul. Good references, good video making. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to go into BookTube. His competition actually has talent and isn't lazy. Doesn't just sit in front of a camera and push their sort of culture war agenda. They talk about the books. They even have some good jokes overall. Daniel Green's taste, that's something a little bit harder to really go into. Some things are funny. Some things, like is sort of a Wheel of Time coverage, a little bit too sympathetic overall.
The same standard going in for a Brandon Sanderson book as a Lindsay Ellis. And in some ways, I was pleasantly surprised with Axiom's End and others disappointed. This is something that will find its audience. There will be people who enjoy this, but it has pretty large flaws. Let's go ahead and get into the basic premise first. Arrival.
You got to love that sort of a preface in there. The premise is completely, I tried to read it, or should I say listen to it on an audiobook, and it was a mess. There was definitely issues of consent you could pick apart as a cultural war critic that definitely rooted in the beginning. I'm not going to give a review. Couldn't stomach it. It wasn't worth reading since I wasn't going to make content out of it. Would have probably been a great line of tactics to sort of go for, but that wasn't exactly the direction I was going with my YouTube channel at the time. Just general curiosity.
Our protagonist named Cora, who through some misfortune ends up with an alien translator injected into her. Now she is the one communicating between the aliens and us. With a slight, minor, tiny, itty bitty bit background of linguistics, she is using that to further explain some of the more interesting things about the languages going on, but that's where one of the big flaws with Axiom's End comes to the surface. Despite myself being a fan of Lindsay Ellis's videos and her great eye for themes and concepts within her critical videos, that doesn't really come through in her work here. Everything comes across as only fairly...
Yeah, maybe you were touting her too much here and there. No, and he needs a clarification. Let's get into that.
Axiom's End going to be pushing any boundaries for any experienced sci-fi reader. It's just not there. I want to quickly clarify and hit on the point that I'm well aware Axiom's End is not trying to touch on the same themes or ideas of Arrival. I'm just comparing the great execution of the attempts within that movie compared to the attempts in this book, and how the focus within the movie definitely delivered better than a more kind of scattered shot.
Funny stuff. But that's not all.
Die-hard fans might have just had to accept a certain axioms.
Yeah, sorry. Burp, literally.
Just had to accept a certain point. Yeah. That it's not well written, but that doesn't matter to me. And it's absolutely okay.
It's not well written, but it doesn't matter to me. There's a lot of interesting ideas. This would have been prime ground for someone of freaking John De La Rose to sort of roast, so to speak. The sort of cover here, and something I want to push forward is Dennis E. Taylor. Wouldn't be up to it's still a little bit too liberal probably to be on the sort of record, but it's definitely something worth pushing because it's another person like Andy Weir who has no background in writing, creating massive success through alternative channels. But you know what? They are useful to John De La Rose's sort of agenda that he's definitely pushing at and maybe relying on like a crutch.
My favorite books are not well written. But now we are going to transition on into...
Yes, experimental. Some people do it. I can still criticize the book for the sort of ideas, and I can criticize Daniel Green here for putting so much preface it and having such a soft hand with his Lindsay Ellis review. He definitely doesn't want to step on any toes. And people who just, you see that a lot with these popular award winning things. They'll say a lot of bad things, but they'll try to play cover for them. Something like Heaven's River, the Bobiverse series, is something I really want to push, but I don't know how to exactly do that because I'm not exactly in the position as a #1 science fiction writer to really explain the great things about it. Why I'm sort of diving into actual criticism to sort of get a gauge on it. Positive, negative, blah, blah, blah.
Heaven's River by Dennis Taylor, the latest of the Bobverse series, one of my favorite ongoing sci-fi series right now, and a kind of interesting comparison to Axiom's End as a whole, because Axiom's End was a fun kind of just romp, but it left a lot to be desired. Bobverse accomplishes quite a bit of the same, but I absolutely feel satisfied with everything promised. And I think that's because Dennis Taylor is very aware of what he's writing and has just that more experience to technically control and constrain himself as an author to pave the road he needs to.
Really? He has no background in writing, no background in criticism. He's been doing this as a hobbyist, a fan. Bobiverse, for anyone who doesn't know, is pretty much about a geek in modern era, basically when it started, who gets hit. He gets brought back as a what they call a replicant. Yeah. The whole Blade Runner references is throughout. Basically, they scan his brain and copy it onto a hard drive, and he goes out. A lot of great grounded science fiction ideas with some other ideas that he sort of pushes throughout the whole series. Beautiful stuff that should be promoted, but I don't think it's something John Della Rose would go with, considering the initial sort of bad guys are Faith, and I may not get into that too much. Definitely something hard for John Della Rose to push out. So, with such a bias as he has, JDA, of course he wouldn't push it or push for anyone but himself and his buddies.
As you want to aware, Bobverse is the story of a man whose brain is copied, put into a space probe, and shot on out to the cosmos, and then he begins copying himself, creating the Bobverse. As the Bobverse grows and grows, more is explored and discovered about.
I once wanted to do a comparison with the references done in Ready Player One versus the references in Bobiverse, because you don't need to know the references. You get to know the character through his references. And if you know the references, Star Trek, Star Wars, a lot of science fiction references thrown in, it's always preface it, and he's never actually admired for that. In fact, he's rather judged in this future world for his geekdom and how it confuses so many people. So he has to explain himself. Rather interesting way of introducing these references where anyone can appreciate, and you'll appreciate even more if you know about them.
Space around us. And this series does play to many of my soft spots for sci-fi, just in its conceptual values. Like being able to explore the universe endlessly, I would do that in a heartbeat. Kill me now, take my brain, put it up, boop, I'm down. I could see some people at this point in the Bobverse series start feeling diminishing returns because there is a formula to the Bobverse. No question. Bobverse keeps growing.
Yeah, I disagree with him, but we're not here for Daniel Green. I just happen to sort of able to work it into this sort of thing. But I'm trying to think of, is there really anything else I can do? I meant, it's just so sad. John Della Rose, let's actually see what someone thought of his high school girl in Crusades. Was he a simp or she? I don't even know. Fun stuff. Let's see how his book got reviewed. Going in totally blind. Let's hope it goes well.
Hello again, everyone. This is Abra, and I'm back to give my 2 cents on A High School Girl in the Crusades by John Della Rose, also known as leading Hispanic #1 best-selling author, comic creator, and all-around nice guy. John Della Rose has a reputation of
definitely a friend, unless she's got a twist on this,
being somewhat of a provocateur. He is a self-proclaimed troll. Love him or hate him, one thing you can't deny is that the man is driven. He's also not one to back down from his beliefs. Not too long ago, I became aware of an attempt to shut down JDA's Indiegogo campaign by a disgruntled comic creator.
You're mate. You are I am going to bury you.
Whoa,
bury you.
This is psycho. Stop it.
It seemed for a while that John's campaign might be reinstated by the crowd.
So, how much of this is going to be about his controversy and not the actual book. Let's see if they talk about
Parents prompted John Delarose to utilize Kickstarter, another crowdfunding site. Kickstarter is not typically used by members of Comicsgate.
Okay, how is this relevant to a review? Puff piece done obviously by someone who's a admirer of this man. Well, as I said, going in
It is a
blind.
lighthearted, fast-paced story in the style of Japanese manga and shares many of the characteristics often found in the genre. The interiors are in black and white, the characters have a young cartoonish appearance, and the story is quite outlandish. One big difference is the comic reads from left to right, front to back, the norm for Western books, whereas Japanese manga will typically read from right to left, back to front. Then, of course, there's Korean manga, which in most cases is similar to the Japanese format, with the exception.
What's with all this freaking fluff here? I mean, this is not a professional person.
Mysteriously transported from present day to all the way back during the period of the Crusades.
Good editing.
Reiko is discovered by Richard of Bretagne,
Good editing, though.
who believes that the young girl was sent from heaven by God. Reiko quickly comes to the conclusion that she must be dead and determines that she has been resurrected inside of a game, similar to Isekai anime. You really do have to applaud the Japanese for their creativity. Believing that she is starting out her new existence as a game character, the girl is determined to level up right away. She then convinces Richard to bring her along on his holy quest. While the comic did feel a bit on the short side, I found it to be entertaining and very creative. The opening of the book did a good job of establishing certain things that come into play later in the book.
Okay. Sounds taking advantage of tropes. Reminds me of someone he talked about. Remember I brought up he brought up John Stelzy in at least 2 of his videos, his hard on. And Ready Player 2. I am Ready Player 1. A lot of references. Maybe the troll title is well deserved.
It also gave credibility as to why Reiko, a high school girl, is able to hold her own during the Crusades. I really liked how John Delarose opened his comic by immediately jumping into the story. It was after this quick introduction to the character and the strange event which sees the girl whisked off the ancient Holy Land that the title page is presented. I felt that this method gave the story a more animated feel. The art by Dachel Okamoto was quite enjoyable. It felt simple and clean, while also including different styles to highlight various emotions.
Wow. This is a fluff piece. I mean, maybe she's right. Definitely trying to get a little bit of that.
The artist include a character with the likeness of Comicsgate creator Nasser Rabadi being kicked in the groin. Longtime CG fans will recognize this reference going all the way back to the days when the chat would cry out, "Kick Nasser," during various YouTube live streams. Overall, I am pleased with John Delarose's latest comic. I appreciated the homage to the manga genre and other little touches such as having...
This is just freaking a fluff piece. I mean, yeah, maybe he's just a troll. Maybe that's the troll's sort of shielding. Got one comment. Think not too many. Fun stuff here. Okay. Here's how this sort of goes here. Like and subscribe. Okay. Okay. Doesn't seem to be too bad. Another struggling creator. Maybe I should support them. See if they come out with anything great here and there. Because just because she's playing the game, problematic internet troll, Christian troll, who the hell knows? Maybe this explains a lot about John Delarose. He doesn't care about actually the industry, about the culture at all. It's just all troll, all a gimmick. And there's just so much territory he could have taken advantage of. But you know what? Why bother? Why bother try? Why try to be successful? Make a name for yourself. Maybe he's just using the troll as sort of a shield from criticism, not taking anything seriously. And that's sort of sad. He positioned himself so well, but taking things seriously, I guess, is just for losers nowadays. And I guess John Delarose doesn't want to take the serious route. He wants to take the troll shield. And that's really disappointing. So sad. There's so much fertile ground to actually talk about with BookTube. And he can sort of contradict a lot of these people like John Green. Why I respect to a certain extent overall, John Green, his sort of a space. Everyone in this space is sort of making it hard to actually have talks like that. Almost 500,000, and he still go into One Piece, and he's jumping off a wheel of time. Definitely fertile ground. I guess sci-fi writers can't really pull off of that. Foundations is another fertile ground to actually go into, and you can even proposition yourself against other content creators. Like there is one person, doing this one on the fly here, because definitely someone I thought about doing reactions to, because he's a very big proper upper of something I think is really disappointing overall. That sort of not Ready Player One. Who wants to stand for that? I know there's some crazy people give that a pass because of all its historical values, and really is just weak. The Dune Man, trying to hate on the Star Wars trilogy. Even did a review of it a while ago, but very proficient. Trying to say Dune sort of a ripoff of Three Body Problem. Very big simp for Three Body Problem. I really argue with everyone over that because it's really not a great book. And he did some Game of Thrones, Quentin reviews. And what? I'm not going to be too harsh with the man. He's definitely fertile ground for someone like John Della Rose, at least in some of the past. As I said, he definitely tried to watch Star Wars. Yep. First time seeing, here's where he was doing it. Let's go into the original Star Wars one. Trying to make first time seeing Star Wars. Let's get a little bit of this and do a little bit of critique and give John a lesson of how he could take advantage of some of these booktubers out here with rather insane ideas being propagated. Well, not insane, just rather fluff. Almost bread tubers without the bread.
Guys, I finally watched the Star Wars movie.
I'm not racist. I just really hate the fact that he's almost the elitist, propping Dune up. You're about to see this. And of course, Three Body Problem. Definitely fertile ground to actually respond to some of his videos, but that's always tricky to do.
Terrible secret has been kept on this planet that sand people exist in far greater numbers. I'm just joking. I know that line's not in the actual Dune book.
I think this is actually the same track that I used for my little John Della Rose. Royalty free, I think, mystery. Definitely good stuff for anyone who wants to do videos to look through royalty-free music.
David Lynch put that line in the movie, whatever. I'm just kidding. I kid. So guys, this is an exciting day because today I'm going to review Star Wars A New Hope, which is the first movie in the first Star Wars trilogy, but it's actually episode number 4 because the other ones were made afterwards, which is really annoying and weird. And I don't understand. I saw The Force Awakens when it came out. I really don't even remember what happened in it. I saw The Last Jedi when it came out. Thought it was kind of good. I don't really remember what happened in it. Here's
good, but doesn't. You could definitely go through Quentin Review's idea and definitely think, yeah, he definitely has a team sport. Follow him on Twitter. I think I quit after he had some really bad political takes that he knew nothing about. Was it Rittenhouse? I don't know. That one always weirds me out.
The thing, I'm a science fiction book fan. I read science fiction books, and that is my primary method of consumption of sci-fi. I do like sci-fi movies as well, but I tend to go for more serious sci-fi movies. I like things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because that's awesome. But Star Wars was just
okay. At least I can agree with that. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, good book, okay movies, and the British miniseries. Sort of was lacking, especially that ending there.
The Star Wars movies, the original trilogy especially. As a Dune fan, I'm aware of the fact that George Lucas took a lot of influence from Frank Herbert's Dune when it came to the creation of Star Wars. And I did see some of that watching the movie, and we'll get into that. So where do I start? Star Wars A New Hope. I guess I can just describe the setting of Star Wars to you as if you don't know what it is. So, from a Dune fan's perspective, from the perspective of someone that's never seen Star Wars, this is what Star Wars is about. So, you got like the Empire, right? And they're the bad guys, and they want to hurt the good guys, who are anybody that they don't like. And then there's also these people called the Jedi, who are not around anymore because Darth Vader killed all of them. But there's one more, and he's like hiding off on Arrakis. No, excuse me, Tatooine.
You really gotta love this. This would be prime material to sort of. I wonder how many downvotes. I don't know why I upvoted this. Rather dumb of me. I thought it was funny. Maybe that's what he was going for. Oh, look, graphic novel also. Everyone's pushing those graphic novels. Just watched everything Star Wars stole from Dune. Been sub for a while. But that was not for the sci-fi, not Dune. Since the movie, noticed similar searching, saw, blah, blah, blah. Agree with the clickbait title. I respect the game. This video is just funny. Yeah. Maybe I should at least leave it neutral. Who the hell knows? But as I was saying, prime material all over YouTube. Cover some of these booktubers. Try to create a dialogue with them instead of just being a sort of laughable clone of EVS or some of these other guys, or maybe even someone like Dick Masterson. I don't really know what he's going for. I thought he brought up some really good, valid points about the industry, but then he sort of just went on this troll to sort of, I don't know, maybe just went into the nihilistic mindset that a lot of these conservative, anti-woke people have embracing for years. He started a trend with that, or maybe got on the bandwagon of that particular trend. It's really hard to tell overall. Sort of the sort of faults that John De La Rose made over the years. If he just wants to be a laughable joke for people to laugh at, for how extreme, how egotistical, and how much he pushes his own product and fuck with people, that's fine. You know, takes no intelligence, no honesty, no ethics, nothing like that to do it. You just keep on attacking, take advantages, laugh off the haters, and just do your own thing. And I can respect the methodology of that. Do I like that sort of content? Did I wish that he could have actually been more? Maybe. I want someone to be in that headspace to sort of push back in this industry. But maybe that's just too much work for him. Easier just to be a troll, to just fuck with people. Absolutely agree. But going deeper, doing actual analysis, looking for actually ways to sort of mock these people in creative ways, you know, that takes a lot of energy and time. But he's on vacations, writing books. He doesn't have time for this. Are his books any good? It doesn't matter. Consume. He's doing the exact same thing as the corporate industry. Consume because of the culture. Same problem with a lot of these comic skater. Now, if they really just was pushing really good stories, like Eric July has a really good idea, but I don't know if he actually lives up to it. I'm not gonna follow it, but his fans seem to respect his message. Frankly, comic books is not the field for me. It's just disappointing to lose someone who was actually talking about the book industry. Just go over to the lazy comic gators technique to just become a bit player instead of carving his own space out in a rather desolate field. But, you know, not having allies probably sucks. I can understand not wanting to go into it. Making yourself in that space is rather difficult. Been reluctant to try that myself. I also have many different interests. Video games, internet discourse, hell, even other issues overall. But I hope I wasn't too harsh to John De La Rose. And I probably wore that name out with all I said it. Should have went with JDA. give him the respect he frankly hasn't actually established at all. But anyone who actually respects him with his history and how he goes about, more power to them. I mean, he's definitely somewhat entertaining, definitely grifty-ish, very egotistical in some ways. That's how he comes off. But as Grace stole my phrase that I like using all the time, everyone wears masks. It's hard to tell how much of the mask is made up of who they are. Because going into writing, some people criticize like Eric July for having him being your stand-in. Frankly, I think that's a rather weak criticism because you always want to base your characters off of yourself and people you're close to when you start off with. Once you get more comfortable with storytelling, you can branch out to other archetypical characters, build them out, flesh them out, and go along with those particular lines. But I think this was long enough, and as normal, all my live streams are quite a experiment, and I'm always curious to see who pops up and who will comment on them in the future. So, if you have anything to say, any arguments, because frankly, I think JDA just sort of wasted what he was doing in the field and is pretty much just a laughing stock. But if he has fun with it, who am I to hate on the man? I just don't have any respect for him when I thought maybe he could have been an actual voice of reason, but maybe I was much stupider to think that back in the day. But until next time, I'm done. Bye.